What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to have a lot of fun because it's Dolph Lundgren time once again as we discuss Army of One next on Drew Reviews. Guys, as anyone who's watched Drew Reviews knows, I'm somewhat of a Dolph Lundgren fan. Yes, he's not going to win any awards for acting, but he is just this stoic butt kicker, this big physical presence, kind of like Arnold. And I really appreciate a lot of his movies. Very underrated action. And this movie here is no exception. This is 1993's Army of One, also known as the Joshua Tree in some places. Uh, my good buddy Rambo Raff said in his review, this is a much better cut of the movie than the Joshua Tree, which throws out that end fight. So, I've never seen it, but I would definitely recommend this one. And I think it's kind of funny. Universal Soldier was a high point for Dolph, maybe the high point in his career. Him and Van Damme were awesome in that movie, and this was his follow-up in 1993. And there's so many parallels between Army of One and Van Damme's follow-up, which also came out in '93, Nowhere to Run. And you've got this fugitive on the run, and then the ending where they get arrested is the same. A lot of similarities there, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But we'll get into the plot just really quick. Dolph plays Willem Santee. He's a former race car driver. He's got in with these bad guys, and they're boosting cars, these Ferraris, these Lambos. And his mentor in this movie is George Siegel. He's really good. He's an LAPD detective, but he's bad. In the opening scene, Santee and his partner Eddie, they've got this semi-truckload full of cars, and they get pulled over by this cop. And before his partner can talk to him, this car pulls up in front. There's gunshots. Santee runs out. He pretty much gets framed for this murder of this cop and his partner Eddie. Before he can go to prison, of course, he's convalescing in this hospital, and they go to transport him where he's going to spend the next 30 years of his life. And the guards try to shoot him in the head. And he makes this escape into the desert. And that's where he abducts Rita, played by Christian Alfonso. And you might know her as Hope Brady from Days of Our Lives. She was the young hot one in that show. And man, she's really good looking in this movie as well. They have a pretty steamy scene underneath the railroad tracks. There's a scene where they're holed up in this hotel, and she gets naked and gets in the shower. And like I said, she's hot, but it's a little bit less hot because I was doing some reading, and I found out she was body doubled in that scene by a porn star. Somehow that makes that less hot for me, but I digress. Anyway, so they're on the run. She ends up getting Stockholm Syndrome, sort of, in this movie. She finds out that he's actually not guilty of these crimes, that his mentor, played by George Siegel, and his partner, played by Bo Starr, who was Sheriff Meeker in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Just a really good actor. And I like the chemistry between both of those bad guys, but they're the ones who actually shot the cop in the beginning and set him up to take the fall. And they're the reasons why the guards were trying to put a bullet in his head, right before he made that escape. So the rest of the movie is him trying to prove his innocence, trying to get this money, and, Rita slowly finding out that he's not a bad guy after all. There's a lot of things I liked about Army of One. Dolph Lundgren in this movie is one of them. I noticed, starting with Universal Soldier, he started getting smaller. Masters of the Universe and Red Scorpion, clear up until Showdown Little Tokyo. He was a pretty big brute of a man, but he really started slimming down in like Universal Soldier in this movie, and from here on, he's just really lean, but he's still got that presence about him. And there's a great scene in this movie where he takes Christian Alfonso. He meets up with Eddie, his ex-partner's widow, and her son, who's like 12 years old or something, has boosted this van for them to get away in. And there's this great exchange between the kid and Dolph about, trying to make something out of your life. And Dolph goes, "What day is it? What day?" He's like, it's Friday. He's, "Yeah, we'll all be dead by Sunday. Do you really want to be like me, boosting cars?" I thought that was a really powerful scene, very well acted. Christian Alfonso in this movie, woohoo, mama. I was about to say she's really good. She's okay as far as acting. This is one of the few actual features she actually did. It's shot in a beautiful part of the country, which is alien to a Midwest boy like myself. It's out in Joshua Tree, California, out in that state park. And, I think some of the same rocks are some of the ones you saw in like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Hell Comes to Frogtown. That big formation. But they're out there amongst there. They have some great fights, some great racing through the desert. The action, though, is where this movie really shines. Speaking of racing, there in the beginning when he gets away, he kidnaps Rita and steals her truck, and they're whipping around corners and dust is flying, lose the cops. There's some great racing there at the end too, where they're in a Lambo and they're racing around corners, around cliff faces, with no rails on the sides, and man, it just looks awesome. They got the engine sounds sounding really good in this movie, but the actual action, the gunplay, is where this movie really shines. There's a scene there where he goes to get his money from Jimmy Shoeshine before Siegel and Beau Starr end up showing up, and that scene is just awesome. You got Dolph, and he's coming down a conveyor with dual wielding guns like this, shooting bad guys on either side. There's a little bit there where he's on a creeper on the floor and he's shooting guys under cars. That was really cool. There's a scene where there's paint thinner going everywhere, which is highly flammable. He ends up taking this spray painter that they're painting these cars with and sets this guy on fire, and then martial arts kicks him. Just a great set piece. That was actually the centerpiece of this movie, and it's one of the main reasons, besides Dolph's performance and his chemistry with Alfonso, to watch this movie. The fight at the end of this movie between him and Alfonso and Siegel and Starr is really good as well. They're fighting there in that state park, and a lot of kicks being thrown, and bad guys are fighting dirty. Dolph's throwing dust in people's eyes and kicking butt. He's just so good in this movie. He doesn't do a whole lot of martial arts, but what he does do is impressive, as always. The soundtrack was done by Joel Goldsmith, who's Jerry Goldsmith's son. It's pretty good as well. Cinematography's good. It's got that early 90s feel to it. Now, as far as cons in this movie, and they're mostly technical, you got things like when he's there in that warehouse at Jimmy Shoeshine's, and he's going along the floor on that creeper. There's a shot or two where if you're looking really close, you can see the line they're pulling him on. It's a big deal. That's not a big thing to me. The one that kind of made me laugh, there's that scene toward the finale of the movie where they're racing, with the Lambos through the desert around these cliffs and everything. And you can actually see the shadow of the helicopter, that they're shooting the scene on the desert floor. And, I imagine in 92, 93, they had a way to digitally take that out, like in Terminator 2 or something. But, it didn't happen. And so that's kind of odd. Dolph's got this scene with Siegel's wife where he's trying to get her to call Jimmy Shoeshine. And she's easily 15 to 20 years older than him. And I mean, she's still a decent looking woman, but just the age difference. And she's trying to seduce him. That scene came across as clunky to me. But as far as cons, that's basically it. Christian Alfonso's acting wasn't anything special, but I liked her presence and her look in this movie. As far as what I would rate Army of One, I'm going to go 6 3/4. It's one you definitely need to see. I actually bought this at a pawn shop a couple hours from me for $1. And it's probably the best dollar I've ever spent in my life. I'd never seen this before anywhere, and now I've actually found it. It is up on YouTube if you want to see it. But definitely a good purchase here, and would definitely recommend seeing this. Like I said, 6 3/4 for Army of One. Definitely give this one a watch. Just recently, me and my friend Brandon over at Macho Movie Madness, we did a tier list ranking for Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. I'm going to do the same for Dolph Lundgren. So, I've not seen that done here on YouTube. So, he's got a lot of movies, and I'm probably going to pick 25 or 30 because I think he's got 104 acting credits. And we'll just go through and tier rank those for you guys. Because, like I said, I'm a pretty big Dolph fan. Brandon's a pretty big Dolph fan. And so, this is going to be kind of a labor of love to try to get all this done and all these watched. Hopefully, by like mid-late spring, you'll see that here on Drew Reviews and Macho Movie Madness. So, be on the lookout for that. Guys, I think I got a review for Speed coming up next, so be on the lookout for that. And until next time, guys, I'll see you down the line on the next Drew Reviews.